Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Majority Show, back after our extended break for the New Year holiday, I suppose you could call it that. We are, of course, Scotland's number one politics and chat from an anti-nationalist perspective, coming to you live 7 p.m. every Wednesday. Anyway, please, we are trying out a new sound system, so if you're having trouble with us hearing us, please do let us know in the comments. Of course, I'm here today with the co-hosts David Griffiths and Mary Devlin. David, you're actually joining us today from northern Arizona. This is in the United States. Yes, I'm sure there's some song about that. Are you going through the desert on a horse with no name?
Absolutely, all that stuff. And then there's one about Phoenix, one about Winslow, Arizona, and Tucson, Arizona. So yes, this is somewhere I've come, I think the third time about this way. And I'm just out here on a very long overdue visit to see a very old friend and to take off some bucket list items while I'm here. So yeah, the sky's blue right there. And the sun is shining. All is good. All is good.
Apart from a little bit about the election, what are you going to be talking to us about tonight?
Indeed. Well, there was, you may have noticed, a very big defection in Scottish politics this week, which I will be discussing in some detail.
Right, okay. Right, of course, Mary's here as well. What are you going to be talking about?
Well, I was doing well until David told me that he's in the States enjoying sunshine and a good time. Just joking. I'm well and looking forward to the year ahead and a great show. And tonight I am going to be talking about how the Scottish Government is helping people consume heroin and other Class A drugs and even supplies taxis for them to get there.
Oh, wow. That sounds like quite a good deal. In that somehow anyway. Right, okay. Of course, we're going to have a continuous discussion about today's SNP grifters.
And of course, we have Zoomer of the Week.
Right, so we're back with all that and much more in just a moment. We'll find the thing. Okay, here we go. Right, welcome back to the Majority Show. Where's Mary gone? Where have you gone, Mary?
I don't know.
Seem to have disappeared there. Coming back in a second. We can expect a number of glitches because we haven't done this for a little while. Anyway.
Well, tell me, Mark, how would I get back in?
How do you get back in? Log in again. Why don't you just log in again?
Go out and come back in again?
Yeah, just go back.
Strange.
Yes, that's strange. Is that you that's beeping at David?
I think it may be. Hang on, yes. Hang on a sec.
It's an American beep, I can tell.
Indeed, yeah.
That's that. Right, well, while we wait for Mary to come back in, we will welcome you back again, of course, to the Majority Show. It's number one politics chat. I'd like to apologise for not being able to do the show last week with various family commitments that came up. But we are back now, and we're happy to see you all joining in the chat. David, you're a bit low in the frame.
Beg your pardon. There you go. That better?
Back up, and I think Mary's coming back. There's no camera at the moment. So we'll see. Whoops, she's disappeared. Right, then
I've re-entered, but I don't see myself there. So what do I do now?
It's not just the camera option on your screen to make a silly suggestion, is it, Mary? No.
Oh, there you are. Oh, wait.
It was indeed, David. Thank you very much.
Right. Okay, very good.
Well sorted.
Okay, so anyway, as we're here we are, off here, and our aim is a thriving Scotland without the toxic nationalism that is strangling Scotland's potential. Now, a huge thanks to United Against Separation Facebook page, where many of you are watching from tonight.
And remember, sharing is caring. So the number one thing you can do is to like the show on YouTube. And even if you don't subscribe, just drop us a like. And if you can subscribe, please do so. It all helps to increase the reach of the show at the click of one button.
And as usual, I will be managing all your comments tonight. So please make them short and snappy, and we'll try to get as many up on screen as we can.
Right, very good. Let's get started. So, as we all know, we're going to take advantage of this rare and unique opportunity of having a US correspondent directly on the show in the name of David Griffiths. Now, as we all know, Donald Trump became the 47th, it says 47th here, I'm not actually sure if that's correct.
45th and 47th.
47th.
That's correct, yes. So they count him twice and they count Grover Cleveland twice as well, yeah, as two presidents.
Right, okay, anyway, immediately signed a raft of executive orders, so as the saying goes, to make America great again. Now, David, you're on the ground there. How what's the feeling, you think? Especially, but more importantly, first of all, do you have any feeling what people thought of the Biden time beforehand and the contrast?
Yeah, well, I'm where I am right now. The people I've met so far are all very anti-Trump. They're actually quite vociferously anti-Trump. So I haven't got much feeling from those guys other than a sense of disappointment at Kamala not winning. My view, watching the US election from afar, when the election took place rather than the inauguration, which took place this week, was that Trump won thanks in the main, again, to votes from working class white males, but not exclusively, though. And there was some surprise that the sheer share of the vote he got from, say, Hispanic voters and even black voters and female voters, bizarrely, was higher than people had thought. The feeling here among the people I've mentioned, who are hugely opposed to Trump, is that Biden clung on too long. He didn't have a good presidency anyway. You know, wars broke out. It was very deeply touched by, I guess, the aftermath of COVID also. So the economy was in difficulty, the interest rates went up. So he did have some bad luck. But then he clearly was going on at a time, Biden, that is, when he wasn't able to do the job. We could all see that. It was dreadful. And the fact that he clung until he was frankly humiliated in a hustings show, or whatever you call it, I guess an interview, that just killed any momentum that Kamala could have had. So she was brought in, if you like, belatedly, and she just couldn't get her campaign really going, and she wasn't able to build anything like a convincing case to be president. Now, the feeling here among the guys I've spoken to is that both Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris were more credible candidates than Trump, but both interestingly lost to him. The least convincing candidate of the three to face Trump was Biden, who degenerated into a shambling wreck who looked on the verge of an imminent breakdown. And bizarrely, he won. So the feeling here is, well, is America yet ready for a female president? And that's what a lot of people are saying. And of course, people are saying, this is terrible, Trump's sexist, the country's sexist, this is awful. Much like was said 8 years ago when he won the first time. So, yeah, but one thing I would say is Trump is a classic Marmite figure. You either think he's going to do a job for you or you hate him, and you really, really do hate him. And the people I speak to here actually fear him, really. I mean, this is a state where you can keep guns. So, America's a big country with a lot of people who have got very, very strong opinions. So, I don't know. I think it's going to be a very interesting presidency. But the last thing I would say is, what I noticed in the inauguration ceremony was the TV commentators, they don't make any pretense at being impartial. It was like, and of course, here we have Biden handing over power. Unlike Trump, of course, he didn't 4 years ago, and all those riots took place in his name. What a disgrace. And this is a commentator. You're like, bloody hell. Wow. So it's not like Laura Kuenssberg or something like that, who at least tries to be impartial.
Yeah, I don't really believe in this impartiality nonsense anyway.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
It breaks through anyway. Their biases break through anyway. It's because of the BBC, really, of course. Now, Ian McKinnon says, we need a Trump in Scotland. Perhaps that's true. He started with 80 executive orders, which broadly stopped the diversity grifters, stopped the climate change grifters, stopped immigration grifters, and focused particularly on American technological advantage. Now, I think many people in the UK are looking at that and going, why can't we have that here? Why not? I'm looking at the lack of enthusiasm in politics, lack of competence in politics. Now, to say that for all the parties, I'm just saying, well, why can't we have that enthusiasm? Why we cannot have that leadership? And why is the UK so pessimistic? And of course, that leads us, of course, to Keir Starmer, who is like a block of wood compared to Mr. Trump. We love him or loathe him. Anyway, now some people say Trump has really saved the West. Well, perhaps. Anyway, okay. Perhaps about America. It's half a continent. But of course, the effect is a global effect, nonetheless. Now, let's go back. Let's go to the thing. I mean, do you think that this optimism is a thing that you feel? I mean, you're saying you're talking to people who are not, who live in fear of Trump.
But nonetheless, though, I am seeing optimism, certainly in interviews. I mean, it's wall-to-wall coverage here, really. And they interview a lot of people, and people are saying, yeah, he's going to put America first, and he's going to stop the wokeism, all that stuff. So there's definitely a sense of optimism. More so than, I mean, the people I just met happen to be Democrats. That's how it is. But what Trump did say is he would focus on the areas he felt that Biden had neglected. And he said that all throughout the campaign. He said it in the lead up to the inauguration speech. And in his inauguration speech, he said exactly what was predicted. And it has made it clear that he plans to do exactly what he said he would do. Whereas Starmer, as we all saw, had no discernible plan at all. I mean, he talked about compensating the WASPy women and then said he couldn't do it. He said he would never stop winter fuel allowance, and he did exactly that. So, and as soon as he was questioned, as he was straight away on the public reaction of fury to the winter fuel allowance decision, and especially the Southport atrocity, well, his leadership just fell apart, and he had to revert to this authoritarian, jail them all, get them through quickly, get them into prison, let other people out to let them in. Absolute nonsense. There was no sign of a plan there at all. So I suspect the US electorate, I think what they do think is, pardon me, that Trump will focus on US interests primarily. Plus, he will end the fixation with wokeism, as people recognise it here. And lastly, that he will probably be the guy who will bring the wars in Gaza and in Ukraine to an end, whereas both of them, of course, happened and flourished under Biden. And I think, rightly or wrongly, that's how he's viewed, to be honest.
Right, okay. If you don't mind that I'm just going to take a second to a few issues with my microphone. I'm just going to see if it's plugged in correctly, and we'll go from there. All right, just
no problem.
And yeah, David, if you could try and put the volume down. We've got angelic rays of sunshine shining on you, which is, I'm sure, is what's supposed to be, but no, it's... Oh, that's much better. Okay.
Right, that's yours. I'm at number 1.
Oops.
Sorted out as well.
Right, we'll try that.
New year, new problems.
That's the best I'm going to be able to do with it at the moment. So I'm just going to put this down again. You see, I don't. Anyway, that's the best it's going to be, folks. So we will try endeavour to go on. Yeah, I think so many people are looking at this and saying, well, if they can do it, why can't we do it? We had a Tory party that wouldn't do anything. In fact, they signed up to the net zero garbage. They signed up to the diversity garbage as well. And they've certainly signed up to the immigration garbage as well. Is this fair on the people? I mean, at a certain point, people will look at that. In fact, people must be looking at that. Of course, people are looking at that and going, well, why we want that too?
Yep.
We want to say stop the boats, for example. Why is it so hard here? It shouldn't be this difficult. He did it. He stopped all immigration just with one executive order. Now, of course, people don't want a dictator, but those things can still be challenged in the courts and so on if people want to challenge them. The problem is that people don't even try here because they know it's too hard. That's my feeling anyway.
Yeah,
that's true. One final thing I would say in terms of America, you're saying about net zero and wokeism and all this stuff. Here, guys, in Ayrshire, we have 4 bins. Have a guess how many waste bins you have in a house in America. Have a guess.
No idea.
The answer is 1, and you put absolutely everything into it together. And I said, don't you do recycling? And the answer was, why should we? China's just building nuclear coal-fired plants, and it's carrying on with its own agenda. Why should America do it? So, and that's it. They just don't bother. They make no pretense of it, whatever. And when I tell them what happens in the UK, they say, why do you bother? It's not even making the beginning of an imprint on it. So no, we don't. And that's it.
I think they prioritise growth. And I mean, you see particularly the differences with that graph that's going around. It shows the difference in growth between the United States and the EU, for example. And you just think of common sense terms. Think of all the companies that have been started, the big billion-dollar companies that have been started in the States. And how many can you actually say have started in the EU? You've got, of course, there's all the technology companies, and very noticeably, all those tech guys were behind Trump in that inauguration. And whereas with Starmer stood up there, people were like, no, it's not for business.
Well, you'd have union leaders.
And then you thought this whole idea was for Starmer was, let's make business work so that then you can get taxes and then you can give people benefits. But they didn't give it first principles right. Now, America is heading for Mars while we build bike lanes no one uses. We will be back. in a second to discuss the grifters on this corner of planet Earth. So we'll see you in a second if I can find a wee thing. Actually, okay. Here we go. Apologies for any sound issues. We're trying a new audio interface and great as expected. The sound quality in the end should be better. Not the sound quality, but the sound quality the majority survives on donations from people donation or small. So in our fight against nationalism, it's all there. By the various grifters. I'm going to use the word grifter quite a lot tonight because that's really a lot about what this is. Long from now, of course, David is going to talk a little bit about that. So if you do want to donate, you can go to the majority show. Oh yes, and one other thing, what we're trying to do, forgot about this, we're trying to create a majority truth bot that will automatically answer questions on X. This is the thing that we're sick and tired of having to answer to the same questions all the time. Like is the UK is not a country. This is the kind of nonsense that people come up with, and Scottish people are sovereign, all this kind of rubbish.
They're stealing our oil and our water. And
that's it. Yeah, we're a colony. Yeah, of course
we pay more than we get out.
That's it.
Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to find the thing here. I don't know why it's not here. Majority truth box, is it? Switch to this. Oh, jeez, I lost my place entirely. All right. Okay.
Maybe we should just start again. What do you think?
Right, I've got to figure out the majority truth. I'm trying back to this. I'm all over the place here. Right, let's have a look at this and see if I can get in here.
So the idea is anyway that we start a truth bot and that people,
truth bot here. So we're trying to build that. We've already raised £214 out of a total of 1,200. So please, if you would like to get more truth out in social media, please do donate to this. Every penny helps along the way. So please, if you can, do that. Right. Okay. Grifters. Neil Gray said for a long time that nationalism is a way for grifters, gropers, and no-hopers to get power and money beyond their talents. A simple formula, manufacture grievance against the other, then present yourself as the solution. If you keep focus on that, then it takes a long time for people to find out your true nature, which is usually greed. Which brings us conveniently to Neil Gray. This week, Neil Gray, who is the Health Secretary, right?
Yes.
He apologised for misleading Parliament over his use of taxpayer-funded limousines to attend 4 Aberdeen football games, driven by a chauffeur to 3 games at Hampden and 1 home match. Gray, who is unsurprisingly a Aberdeen fan, registered the matches as official government business. And when asked why it was only Aberdeen games he attended, he said, "I should have made sure that I attended a wider range of games and not just Aberdeen." And that's quite something. That is quite something. But that's not all. Gray also admitted using an official car to attend 5 Scotland matches, and he'd be accompanied by a family member or guest to 6 of the matches. David, do you think that family members were involved in official business?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is just a shameless farce. Let me tell you guys, as you know, if you have a job and you're attending a work function, which is a leisure activity, you don't take family members with you. You just don't do it. If you have plans to discuss urgent government business, speaking as the health minister, you absolutely fundamentally don't take family members with you to a leisure activity. And if you're attending a football match featuring a team you support actively, you don't discuss business during the game. I can guarantee you that because I've been to several of them. This is a pack of transparent lies from Gray. Nothing more, nothing less. He's been caught misusing government facilities for his personal use. And as always, he comes up with a lame brain excuse for it. And weak as London lagger John Swinney says, the matter's over, it's move on, it's settled. I mean, what a load of rubbish. You must think the Scottish public are a bunch of complete fools. This is just pathetic. It's laughably bad. Awful.
Yes, I mean that's the thing here is it's just that it's the excuses and the cover up, right? As well, that's the issue. I mean, the Scottish Conservatives, they said that they said that Gray was having a jolly, which is of course what it is. Expense of the taxpayer and asked for the cost to be repaid in full, but that's not really what it's about. It's the idea that the right, as it were. Anyway, when the Scottish Greens, I thought it was quite funny. Scottish Greens criticised him for not using public transport. I'm like, well, okay, as if that was the main issue, So the idea is that you can steal off the taxpayer as long as it's green, which I suppose is their whole reason for existence.
Great.
Yes. Anyway, when questioned about these official businesses, he said, "Well, I've got notes, and they're in the record, and there are summaries and discussions of what took place in accordance with the ministerial code. But after a 2-month freedom of information battle, it turns out, surprise, surprise, that there were no notes at all. And he had to apologise again. He said it was an inadvertent error. An inadvertent error is maybe perhaps spilling some ketchup on your shirt, not lying to a parliament or to the taxpayers while you be trying to steal their money off them." Stephen Kerr had said the Health Secretary had only made the statement because he'd been found out and asked Swinney to take action. But as David said, Swinney didn't do anything at all. There's a one set of rules for them, one set of rules for us.
I like this comment. It says, maybe if he left family at home, he could have fit a secretary in the car to take minutes.
Good point, yeah. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely one set of rules for the ruling classes. It's pathetic, with zero shame either. I mean, quite unabashed, saying, "Oh yeah, I was when I was at that Aberdeen game. Yeah, it was really important business." And then there was the one about the film premiere which he went to because the film in question had something to do with drug abuse. So he said, "Oh, that's why I went to see it." But he took a limo there.
Was it a Bambi or something?
Probably, yeah. But I mean, there was no discussion following the events. No notes were taken. That's because no discussions took place. It's a pack of lies. Look, we're not fools. Please stop treating us like fools. Please stop pretending that what we can see, what is blindingly obvious, isn't actually happening, because we know it is. So stop lying to us, please. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing of it. It's like we know what's going on. But if you just said, "Yeah, I took the thing to the thing. I really shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry." That's more honest, like a thing. "Oh, I didn't realise you couldn't do that. I thought that was one of the perks of the job," and just and brass it out a bit. But no, they're all like, "Oh no, I was actually official business." You're like, "Come on, right?
It's monkey business."
Monkey business, yes, indeed, Mary. Right now, when I was looking at this, researching this, and I saw an article entitled "Lay Off Neil Gray. These witch hunting accusations drag us all down." And I was like, "What the gutter fool wrote this?" And then I realised it was fake Tory Andy McKeever had written this thing here. And McKeever said he all got upset because Neil's week was not spent on improving the crumbling NHS or even talking about it. Instead of coming to Parliament to debate health, he came to the Parliament to defend decisions which would have been made by all the opposition MSPs who demand his attendance. You're like, no, I don't think so. Actually, not everyone's in the grift. And if everyone was in the grift, that's a good enough idea to close the whole place down.
Yeah.
Now there are some people in there who understand the difference between spending taxpayers' money and not.
Well, Andy McIver, let's not forget, guys, a year ago, Andy McIver is the journalist who insisted that the Michael Matheson iPad from Morocco streaming Celtic games story was crap. He said we shouldn't be talking about this, it's a load of crap. And that was immediately before Matheson was forced to stand down because he had attempted to defraud the Scottish public. That shows you what a keen journalistic instinct Andy McIver has. I mean, honestly, I listened to his podcast. I don't know what on earth gave him the idea that he could get a job working in political analysis, because he is utterly clueless. And the stuff he says it's just embarrassingly wrong all the time. So, well, carry on, please, Andy, because if you're on the side of nationalism, that can only help. Yeah, go on, Mary. Sorry.
I was going to say, even on that show, if you're talking about Holyrood sources, he's even introduced on there as being a Tory advisor.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
So he is, yeah. What a joke.
I mean, so it's bad enough that we have these people grifting off the state, and then covering up. But I mean, the thing is, that people see it. And you
But-
just don't like they can say, right, I might support independence, but I don't support people try to screw me, whatever it is. I think that's really very, very, very poor. Anyway,
And don't you notice the way Andy McKeever, he's totally gaslighting, right? He's basically saying it's our fault that Neil Gray is having to come in and talk about why he's using all these limos to go to football games when really he should be, talking about the NHS as if somehow it's our fault.
Yep. How dare you report on this story? Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, well, there's one way to get these grifters out, and unfortunately, that's going to be a little bit harder. But David will be talking about that later. Next up, we're going to be talking about a certain Mr. Peter Murrell. I'll be back in a second. Here,
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. On YouTube with a super sticker, super thanks. You can do that, or you can go to the website there and just look it up, or look at our social media. It's on there as well. I shall put a link on the description of the show as well to find it. Talking of nationalist grifters, there are more shocking revelations about Peter Murrell, soon-to-be ex-husband of Nicola Sturgeon. A couple of weeks ago, Sturgeon announced the split from Murrell, saying, with a heavy heart, I'm confirming that Peter and I have decided to end our marriage. To all intents and purposes, and I wrote in here, I wouldn't be mentioning tense if I was...
Intense, yeah.
For some time now, and feel it's time to bring others up to speed to where we are. I don't really care. Anyway, source told the record the split is amicable, and they're still living together in the house. The house will come up in the second part of this segment. Now we turn to Mystic DG, who predicted this very outcome multiple times here on this show. So, David, I guess no surprise there.
Absolutely none. I would say that as I predicted it, and it was 2 years ago, guys, 2 years ago to the date, I came up with the story that, actually today, 15th of January, I said Sturgeon is going to stand down as First Minister. And of course, there was a massive clamour and people discussed it for a while, and 3 weeks later she did. I also said then, not only will she step down as First Minister, she will be arrested as part of Branchform, she will announce an intention to step down as an MSP, and she will announce the end of her marriage. So those are the 4 predictions I made, and I said, this is what I think will happen. Don't confuse this with any stories I spread that I'm given. These are my 4 predictions. Now, so far, she has stepped down as First Minister, she has been arrested as part of Branchform, she has more or less announced her intention to stand down as the MSP, because she's not going to stand. We know that, although she went through the farcical rigmarole of submitting an application. She's not standing, not a chance. And now she's announced the end of her marriage. Well, who saw that coming? I did, because it was so plain and obvious what was going to happen. So 3 have happened. 1 will almost certainly follow. And here's an exclusive for the majority show, the 5th Nicola Sturgeon prediction. Okay. Later this year, I think it will be this year, we will all be told in newspapers and in articles and in interviews that Nicola Sturgeon has made a decision that shows she is very brave. There's my prediction, guys.
Oh, you think?
Let's see if I'm right, guys.
As the word. Well, there have been rumours swirling about
for a long time.
Miss Sturgeon now, Mrs. Murrell, for some time, and well, it's not really a thing, but we are particularly interested in, except gossip. Who doesn't like a bit of gossip? Anyway, right, so where were we at in this now? We talked back to Mr. Murrell, who was arrested as part of Operation Branchform, as was Nicola Sturgeon, although Murrell was the only one actually charged.
That's right.
So he is, where are we down here? Where are we? Charged with embezzlement in April this year. Now, just a few weeks ago, a week ago, the Daily Record said that Murrell had been ordered not to sell their marital home. Now, if you remember, that's the house with the tents outside Uddingston. And the police carting off evidence. That house apparently was bought in 2005 for £228,000, which is less than 2 years of her First Minister's salary, and a fraction of the millions she's grifted off the Scottish people. She could be living in a palace. With all the money she's taken
Ceausescu's.
The Scottish what's that name?
Like the Ceausescu's.
Exactly right.
That's right. That came to a slightly different end in that case. Now, after he was charged, the record reported that a few weeks later, the Lord Advocate Dorothy Bain pursued an inhibition against him. Okay, which means he would be prevented from selling the property or taking a loan against it. Today, that was revealed that was because that order came part of the proceeds of crime unit. Quite interestingly, because we have the proceeds of crime that applies to the house that you're living in with the former former First Minister. And of course, people would have questions to say, well, surely if that's the proceeds of crime, then didn't she know about the house that she was living in was perhaps proceeds of crime?
Good
David?
point. Yeah, indeed. That's quite true. And this is clearly why all of these items are not being sold or returned, because the suspicion is that they are the proceeds of criminal activity. So, yeah, I mean, these people are in real trouble. You can see the way Nicola Sturgeon might think of playing this, because from the start she said, I certainly haven't done anything criminal, which she never at any stage said, neither my husband nor I have done anything criminal.
No.
Never said that. So we have no idea what's going to happen here. We cannot assume. I have no idea if anyone's guilty. I have no idea if it will even go to court. We don't know. We're not assuming anyone is guilty or innocent for that matter, because we don't know. But what you would have to question is, if it's all going to land on one person, only one person is going to be charged, and only one person will be taken into court proceedings, then how's the other party in that marriage really going to expect to come out looking unblemished? And the only way will be if she says, well, it was nothing to do with me, it was all him. I guess that's what's likely to happen, but that's just a complete, that's conjecture, it's just guesswork, I don't know. But yes, it certainly looks as if nothing is going to be above suspicion in terms of anything they've purchased in that time, either one of them. And so, my God,
yeah, it seems very, very weird. I know in most marriages certainly that the people do they share their finances and know what's going on. So the fact that either no questions were asked is as strange as the fact that it happened in the first place. I suppose.
Exactly.
Right now, this Branchform has been going on for quite some time now. As we all know, it's getting everyone's nerves, apparently. Not our nerves, we're happy to see it go on for a long time, just as it is a taint on the SNP, with Tommy Shepherd, of course, on the SNP side, said the investigations have been going on for 3.5 years, and there's no indication when it might conclude. This is having a corrosive effect in Scottish politics. Well, certainly a corrosive effect on the SNP's chances.
Far more accurately, yes, exactly. Yes.
So, I mean, do you see any end in sight for this, David?
Genuinely, so many stories we've heard so often. We've heard from people who are close to senior police officers that something will come imminently. Let's not forget, though, guys, for once, this is not Police Scotland. Police Scotland have actually done their bit to an extent. They've brought up a raft of evidence and said to the COPFS, well, here you go, guys. Here's some evidence. We've charged them, so it's up to you now if you want to take it to court proceedings. And it's the Crown Office and the Procurator Fiscal Service who are not acting yet. So maybe they're waiting for something more. But what I'm hearing is that the Police Scotland are enormously frustrated at how this is making them look, because they actually have done what they're supposed to do, albeit they haven't charged anybody else. But there's no reason why they couldn't start court proceedings and then have further charges added. So I cannot, for the life of me, see what's holding this up. If somebody has been recommended for a charge, why would you not take it to court proceedings? And as I've said before, I suspect it's only because if you like, the way that they made the Scottish judiciary look when Salmond was charged and acquitted on 14 charges, when the Rangers prosecution went absolutely insane and all those hundreds of millions of pounds are having to be given back in compensation. I think the Crown Office is desperate to avoid yet another very high profile, disastrous set of court proceedings. And maybe that's the only reason why nothing's happened. But you can't refuse to charge a guilty person or a potentially guilty person. We don't know if he's guilty or not. You can't just do it because you've had some bad luck with previous cases. Every case has to be judged and tried on its own merits. It has to be. That's what justice is, guys. So there's no excuse for this at all. And it does appear it's now down to the Crown Office. And of course, the Crown Office is headed up by Dorothy Bain, who sits in the Scottish Government, sits in the SNP government cabinet. Yeah. This is farcical. It is utterly farcical. It's making us look like a banana republic with no bananas. That's how we look. It's appalling.
Well, I've also some people are also saying that Murrell might actually have some kind of a claim for, I don't know if it's a mistrial or some kind of defence to say that it took too long for him to get his day in court.
Yeah, that's true, because everyone is entitled to a fair trial. You're supposed not to prejudice the outcome of any potential outcome of any trial by saying, well, of course, Murrell did this and Murrell did that. There is almost unfettered discussion about this in newspapers. People have talked about the items which have supposedly been procured on the SNP credit card for which Murrell was responsible. An awful lot of stuff has got out there. And you could say, I mean, a half-decent defence lawyer could say, there's no way this trial is fair. It's been prejudiced by constant press speculation, and it's been prejudiced by the length of time.
All that is rubbish, to be honest. I think they need to get away from this press speculation and all that. In the States, they don't do that. In the States, they just say, they'll just come out and say, well, we think he's guilty. We think he's guilty, whatever. And you know what? Then it balances out. True. So it's a free speech impediment, actually, and it's ridiculous nonsense.
People are hiding behind it. You're right. People are hiding behind this. Swinney, this week, ongoing criminal activity. No, I can't possibly talk about it. But what about the impact that Nicola Sturgeon's connectivity with our connection with the party is having? Don't want to talk about Branchform. That's nothing to do with Branchform. She's not being charged with through Branchform. So people are hiding behind. As Starmer is, incidentally, talking about the Southport accused, saying, "Oh, it would have prejudiced his trial if I'd revealed that he was." That's a complete pack of lies.
It also kind of lies in the idea that the jurors are idiots.
Yeah, quite. Yeah,
they can't actually say, well, let's look at the evidence. That's what the whole thing's about. We've all watched the police dramas and the States and so on. It's, you know how it works. Anyway, all right. Next up, we're going to talk about defection to reform, but will it improve the chances? Now, okay, we'll do that, and we'll get started. Now I'm going to check the microphone again, but because David said, so hold on just a second. Okay. Right, David, you are up, and you want to talk about
Mark, after every break, you're almost inaudible for about the first 30 seconds after every break.
Oh, really?
I don't know whether it is. Yeah. Anyway, you're okay now. Anyway, okay. Something to look at. Anyway, right, so the big news in Scotland this week is that Thomas Kerr, Conservative group leader on Glasgow City Council, has left the party and he's joined Reform. Now, guys, let's just contextualise this. This comes after Thomas Kerr stood for election to Westminster as the Conservative candidate in the Rutherglen and Hamilton West by-election late in 2023. It comes after Thomas Kerr again stood for election for the Conservative Party in Glasgow East in last year's general election. It also comes after Thomas Kerr supported Kemi Badenoch in her campaign for leadership of the Conservative Party in Westminster, and after he backed Russell Finlay in his successful campaign to become leader of the Scottish Conservatives. Additionally, it comes after Thomas Kerr said this of Reform during the general election campaign. So, Reform UK currently has candidates who are anti-monarchy, pro-independence, and apologists for Vladimir Putin. Be careful of what you vote for, Scotland. Fine. Okay, so let's just to contextualise Thomas Kerr. Okay, now, I've met Thomas and I like the guy, but let's just look at why this might have happened. When questioned in the Hollywood Sources, I should say, podcast this week on his decision, he said, well, Reform has remarkably professionalised, interesting use of the verb professional there. Anyway, they've changed the party entirely. Under Nigel and under Zia, they've done a fantastic job in making sure the party is much more slick. And then he was asked about, okay, so you're going to stand for Holyrood? Oh, there's been absolutely no conversations whatsoever between me and Reform at the Holyrood election. None whatsoever at all. The fact is, I've been angry with the Conservative Party for a number of months now, and we've been told we have to focus on key seats and key areas. But the reality is people in Scotland are fed up with this attitude of vote for us to stop someone else. And that seems to be the only policy the Conservatives have. That's what Mr. Kerr said when he was asked about why he's done this. Mark, what did you reckon?
Right, well, I don't know if this is any better for the side.
Go on, that's okay. Not bad.
But anyway, that's the best I can do for that. So sorry if there's an issue with it. I noticed this kind of discussion from the Scottish Tories last week. They were saying that our vote for Reform is a vote for the SNP. Did you see that? And but it's a bit of a weird one because in some constituencies, the Reform vote is bigger than the Conservative vote. So they're just turning it back on them and saying the vote for Tories is a vote for the SNP. Now, I think this infighting is not really necessarily such a good thing. It seems it's not likely, but as a possibility that there would be a Reform Tory coalition. So probably best if they don't mess each other's beds up, let's put it that way.
I agree.
Anyway, so this. Thomas, I mean, of course, Thomas has been on the show, and we'll try and get him on the show in the next few weeks to see if we can have a chat with him and talk about what's actually going on. But he's talking about the party being professionalised. Now, to be honest, I haven't seen any real example of that. I don't see much. Aside from some populist rhetoric about stopping the votes, I don't actually see actual policies. Now, one of these things that we see in the Trump thing was, in America, look at this idea, the first 100 days.
Yep.
And what can you do in the first 100 days? And Trump's like, I'm just going to do everything the first day. So he's like, okay. So he gets executive orders, does all that, right? Now, whether that be an inspiration to Reform to do that, but remember, of course, you have to remember, Elon Musk said that Nigel Farage was not the right person to lead. And the reason is because exactly these type of things. He's not a traditional libertarian and not and weak in some other ways. Anyway, now, will the party improve because of the influence of Trump? Most likely, I think they would, because any party wants to get votes is going to look at that and go, yeah, that's the thing, or a party of the right is going to look that way. But will the Tories also do that? Perhaps Tories might do that as well.
Indeed. I mean, I think the question about who's really splitting the vote here, okay, you can make the point that Reform has maybe got the edge in polling right now, sure, but let's not forget, unless you're polling consistently ahead of the Conservative Party, really, you're not viable, you're not plausible as winners of seats. Look at last July's general election, the Conservatives slumped to 12.7% in Scotland. That still got them 5 seats. Reform got 7%, and that got them no better than third place in any seat. So let's just keep it real here. The problem with the as I've always said, between the Reform support and the Conservative support in Scotland is the Conservative support in Scotland is very focused. They're really only strong in the northeast and the borders, truthfully. They've got seats they used to win, maybe Perthshire, Ayr, Stirling, Eastwood, that kind of stuff, didn't get anywhere close to any of them this year. Didn't even come in the top 2. So that's out for now for the Conservative Party. Now, what that means is Reform's best chance of winning, you would think, would be there, but not really is the truth, because he didn't focus very strongly there at all. I'll come on to that a bit later. But so to me, the idea that Reform could just pick up, the Conservatives are here and the Reform are here, so we'll just go like that doesn't happen. It really doesn't happen. What would encourage people in the south of Scotland to say, you know what, I'm not going to vote for John Lamont or Mandela or whoever else, I'm going to vote for somebody I've never heard of, David Kirkwood, for example? Are they going to do that? I don't think so. Certainly not in the numbers that would go to Conservatives.
No, I think that's a reasonable point. I think that's where there's entrenched Conservative candidates. I don't see why anyone would go to Reform, especially if they've been voted in as well in the general election.
Exactly right. That's it. So going on, just to finish up a little bit about what Thomas Kerr said by way of explaining his decision, because it all sounds a little bit, frankly, unlikely to me. He said the problem that Russell Finlay has is that the people behind the Conservative Party in Scotland, that is, will not allow the sort of changes that the party needs to take our message to the country. And he made this very barbed point. Russell Finlay is a central belt MSP who spends a lot of time in the northeast and in the borders pretending that he's a farmer. And that's what he actually said. And you're like, right, okay, what he's talking about there is the Conservatives have been told, go and spread the message in the places where we're likely to win seats and forget about standing in Glasgow East or whatever else. Well, guys, let's be honest here. Conservatives aren't going to win there. So it's very strong stuff in this interview. It was in the Holyrood Sources podcast. As I said, let's just look at Thomas's career prospects, and this is not to have a go at him, but he stood for election to Westminster twice. As I said, Rutherglen Hamilton West by-election, he finished a distant third. Last year, he stood in Glasgow East in the general election. He finished 5th behind Reform, would you believe? In both Central and Scotland regions, and Glasgow regions, I should say, last year, the 2 areas which contain the constituencies where Thomas has stood for election, Reform finished above the Conservatives in practically every seat. So in summary, while I'm sure Thomas does have frustration about the Malcolm Tucker type figures in the Scottish Conservative Party, hi David Bateman, if you're listening incidentally, who appear to still have survived the departure of Douglas Ross despite his disastrous tenure, he hasn't made this decision in a vacuum, guys. Thomas Kerr hasn't said, you know what, although I back the leader in Westminster, and although I back the leader in Scotland, I'm a little bit unhappy about the direction the party's going. That's a load of nonsense. He's doing this because he thinks he's got a better chance of being elected via the list for Reform than for the Conservatives in either Glasgow or in the central region, and he's right. So let's not pretend he hasn't factored that in as a part of his decision-making, because he clearly has.
Well, I suppose it's an interesting dilemma, isn't it? I mean, the Tories haven't been able to get into the central belt, but with Reform, maybe a right-leaning party could possibly make those kind of gains, because I think ultimately many of the things that people are interested in are these not necessarily cross-party, but they feel that the traditional parties haven't really dealt with them, particularly immigration, taxation. I mean, all the stuff that Tom just said goodbye to, and I mean, people would like that. Whether and of many parties, I mean, they are talking a bit about this. I don't think they can take anyone from. Well, but can they really take people from SNP? David, we mentioned this last time. I don't think so. Really.
Not in any significant numbers. I don't see it. I can't see it at all. I mean, if you look at, I'll talk shortly about polling, which certainly doesn't bear that out at all to me. So yeah, I don't think so.
Well, anyway, I think Thomas, he's a good. I mean, he's a good candidate. He's been properly vetted. He has experience anyway. But I think this is the thing. We haven't really seen a proper policy agenda. Say this is what we're going to do in the first 100 days. We need it from the Conservatives as well. But what are you going to do this? And as I said, I think Trump is a lightning rod, I suppose, for that. Right, tell us a little bit then about polling then. Okay.
Yeah, happily. Yeah. So I'll keep this brief, guys. But Mark just asked a very salient point there. Is it true that Reform is picking up support from the SNP? Well, let's have a look, guys. At the general election in Scotland, Labour won 35.3, SNP on 30, and the Conservatives on 12, Liberal Dems on 9.7, Reform on 7. Now, Labour's gone down from 35.3 to 20%. This is in the Norstat poll in December. The SNP's gone from 30 to 31%. Conservatives on 14, up from 12.7. Lib Dem stood still. Reform has doubled from 7 to 15, just over double. And the Greens have gone up a bit. So the only move there is from Labour. That's a big swing from Labour to Reform of 11.5%. Now that's what we're really seeing. Now,
can I just notice a second in this? Okay. So in that, what we're talking about is SNP at 31, Conservatives at 14, and Reform at 15.
That's right.
That makes the Conservatives and Reform at 29, and Labour at 20, and the SNP at 31.
Yep.
Right. So that means surely if it makes sense for some type of coalition in that case. I'm not advocating for a coalition at all, but I'm just saying that with those type of numbers, Conservative and Reform together, you've got 29 versus SNP's 31.
You have potentially got that. The problem with that, and it is a problem, unfortunately, Labour and SNP support is more widespread throughout the entire country. The Conservative support is very focused. Reforms is widespread also, which means it wouldn't necessarily equate to the same number of seats as either Labour or the SNP would get. That's the only slight problem, because the SNP's support, as we've said, is so focused. Nobody votes SNP in Paisley or in Greenock or in Dumbarton. Nobody, literally nobody. And similarly,
votes Conservative.
Yes,
sorry. Pardon me.
Everybody votes SNP.
Everybody votes SNP or Labour. They get up to 80. Between them, they get up to 80% of the vote. Conservatives get nothing. So the idea. Go on, sorry, Mark. Yeah,
we are seeing these results like 18%.
We are seeing them.
Glasgow,
sure. In Glasgow for Reform, not for Conservatives. So that, which does back up the contention that these votes are coming from somewhere other than the Conservatives. Thomas Kerr made the point. Reform got 18% in Glasgow East last year. The Conservatives have never polled at 18% in Glasgow East before, so those are not Conservative votes. And it is in a by-election towards the end of the year, so those are not Conservative votes.
So what I'm trying to get at is that it's not a given that Scots are naturally socialist, right?
No, it's not a given.
They're even the socialists in many cases are quite conservative in Scotland, and I think this is the thing, that this hasn't been tapped into, and it can't be done perhaps by the Tories as they exist. Anyway, perhaps Reform is the conduit to that. I don't know.
Listen, that's an excellent point, because people believe that Scotland votes for socialist left-leaning parties, which it has done every time since 1955 in terms of the party getting the most votes and the most seats. That's just a fact, guys. In every major election since 1955, which is now 70 years, okay? But there is a feeling nonetheless that Scotland is a conservative with a small c country, in as much as we're not really socialist. We believe in some conservative values. Doesn't bear itself out in polls, however. For a right-wing, a new right-of-centre party to come in and become the biggest party is frankly impossible. To become even the second biggest party is just as impossible. They might finish third, Reform. That's as far as it will go. If there is any meaningful swing from Reform to Reform from Labour or from the Conservatives, all it can do, looking at the marginal seats, if you like, in the last Scottish Holyrood election, which are the 8 seats won by the Conservatives and Labour, really, any kind of move to Reform will just gift all of those seats to the SNP, because the margins are maybe 8%, 10%. There's about 19% down in Ettrick and Roxburgh, 8% in Eastwood, in Galloway rather than Eastwood, it was less than 6%. Any swing from the party which is in situ as the party which holds that seat to any other pro-UK party which can't win the seat, which because Reform most assuredly can't, it's just going to hand victory to the SNP, because the SNP support is holding up pretty much steady at 30%. Guys,
that's in polling. I think there's a big difference.
Of course, in polling.
I think there's a big difference between people going, and also Labour may improve themselves. There's a long way to go in this.
Absolutely right. But the only point I'd make, and this is the one point I would make, Reform is not going to win constituency seats, guys. It's not. Okay, you do not win constituency seats with 50% of the vote spread across the whole country. If you're very focused, like the Lib Dems, in 4 to 6 seats, with 10% of the vote, you can win seats. But Reform doesn't have a bedrock. It doesn't have anywhere where it's going to be stronger. Tell me one place where Reform could win a seat from the Conservatives. They won't win a seat in the North East. They won't win a seat in the South of Scotland.
Not as necessarily a zero-sum game. It doesn't really help. They need to be winning seats from the SNP and from Labour.
Otherwise, this is a zero-sum game. You're right. So, no, it won't happen. So, this is what I would say. As things stand at the moment, this is what I'm saying to the public, really. Don't vote for Reform in constituencies, because that will hand certain victory to the SNP. And let's not forget, the SNP last election won 62 out of 73 constituency seats. The target this year is not the Conservative Party, it's not the Labour Party. If we are all of one mind, and that is that we want to end nationalism, we've got to target the SNP. And that means doing what we did in July, which is identifying the candidate from the party best placed to beat the SNP in each constituency. It doesn't matter if it's Labour. Talk to me later about how crap Labour are. I know. But if you either want Labour to win it or the SNP to win it in 80% of seats across Scotland, that's a fact. It's an unpleasant fact.
I think it's true, but it's a little bit of a hard.
I understand that. I understand entirely.
Current situation. Now, it seems the ideal solution would be Tories in the constituency and Reform in the list.
In certain places, yes. In certain places, but not all. Look at Lothian. Reform finished 5th in most seats in Lothian. I mean, they just did not perform at all. In the North East and the South of Scotland, vote Tory first and Reform second would be my view. In Glasgow, in West Scotland and Central Scotland, I'd go Labour first, probably Reform second, and in Lothian, I'd go Labour first, Conservative second. So it's not just, so that just watch it. I will do a huge analysis of all of this stuff, guys, and I'll come up with something as I did last year. But Mark's right, we've got almost 18 months to go. Anything could happen. Anything could happen this year. But that's the way it's standing right now, as far as I'm seeing it, genuinely.
Yes, and another possibility, though, is to say, guess what happens if everyone did get behind Reform? And it won't happen, though, will it?
No, it won't. Indeed, people here. Claire McGlynn is saying, Reform will constituency seats. No, Claire, I'm terribly sorry, they won't. Not in Scotland next year. If you think they will do, go down to the bookie. Seriously, you'll get whatever odds you like. They won't finish in the top 2, never mind the top 1, and that's a fact.
Yeah, it remains to be seen. If they did improve their messaging and those things, it's possible they could turn things around. I just think it's also hopelessly British in a way, and just small scale and very poorly done compared with what's going on over there. Anyway, we'll leave this other question. I think we'll leave this a question for the audience to think about next week. What happens if the SNP do
Mark,
win?
give them homework.
Yes. What happens if the SNP do win next time?
Exactly.
And they form a coalition with Labour, which is also a possibility. Then how do we deal with that? 4 or 5 years of SNP. I mean, is it really? I mean, okay, they've got nowhere to go. So
Yeah.
anyway,
The last word, we're going to face a situation where we either let the SNP win again by voting Reform and saying we're not voting Labour, as a lot of people on this podcast are saying, a lot of the viewers. Totally respect that, but be clear. You cannot beat the SNP by voting Reform. You can't. It's not going to happen. Not when Labour and the SNP between them have got 80% of the vote. It's impossible, guys. Truthfully, impossible. It's not going to happen. Vote Reform if you feel like it, but it will not help get rid of the SNP. So if that's what you want, you will get an SNP government by voting Reform in seats across Scotland. You have to ask yourself, do we want to keep the SNP in place so that they're ineffective and won't be able to do anything, or do we want to get them out? That's the question.
Can I just ask then, David, you said if Reform have about 15% of the vote, then they can never win. What percentage would they have to have?
The problem they've got is in constituencies, they would have to be up about 23% to get any seats at all, because if you look at the figures for last time in Holyrood, both the Labour and the Conservatives got over 22% of the vote. That constituency vote, that is, that got Conservative 6 seats and Labour 2 seats, right? Reform are not even only 2/3 of the way there. You don't win seats with 15% of voting constituencies, certainly not with a widespread support, which Reform seems to be. As I said, the only place they're very weak is Edinburgh, and up in North East and South of Scotland, they didn't perform well there either. So I just name one constituency, anybody, name one constituency Reform can win. There isn't one. There isn't.
So they'd have to get to about 22%, you think?
Before they were even plausibly going to win a couple of seats. Yes, they would. If you just look at Labour last time, 21.9% of the vote, they got 2 seats.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think one of the things I want to explore on this show over these next few months is this confusion about what's going on. It's not there are people out there, of course, watching who are pro-reform, and people who are there pro-Tory, whatever it is, pro-Labour, whatever the party is. What we try to do is try to navigate our way through here and try and present the options that you have going forward, and and often it might not be maybe no good options in the end, or things might become more clear as we go on. I would like to see more clarity from Reform and what they're doing in Scotland. Perhaps we can get that by getting Thomas on here, and of course people who are against him as well. So, all right, we'll be back. Very good segment. We'll be back in a few seconds. We're going to talk about drug chaos.
Good.
Drug consumption.
Consumption.
Be done about this.
All these drugs. That is what Mary's going to talk about.
Okay. Well, the UK's first drug consumption clinic opened in Glasgow just a week ago. Drug users can go to the clinic to consume illegal drugs like heroin under medical supervision. So they won't be arrested. It's not illegal. I suppose if they're in possession outside the place, maybe, but once they get inside, then it's not illegal anymore. And so far, in the last week, the safe consumption room has been used 130 times. Now, supporters are hoping that the clinic can reduce overdoses by providing a safe and a clean place for people to use drugs. And as well as safer facilities, users are provided with wound care, clean equipment, and naloxone, as well as drug treatment support. So that's all on the good side. Now, the running costs are expected to be nearly £7 million over the next 3 years, about £2.3 million a year. Now, the question that has to be asked at that point is, could the money be better spent on something else? And I'll come to that a little bit later. But I think a lot of people don't know about another drug consumption place right in the same area, either next door, around the corner, I'm not quite sure. But the new drug consumption room is situated in Hunter Street as well, next to a clinic where 23 long-term drug users are currently being prescribed pharmaceutical heroin funded by the taxpayer. And that's not all. The Scottish Government, i.e. taxpayers, are funding a service which offers free taxis to these addicts. And some of them get picked up from the pub. So they're getting picked up in a taxi from the pub, taken to this facility and given free heroin to inject at the facility. Now, the taxpayer has forked out nearly £6 million on this heroin-assisted treatment. So heroin-assisted treatment, HAT facility, it's known as the HAT facility, so they spent £6 million for these 23 addicts, which is about £102,000 per patient. And then the NHS is paying for taxis, which is about they've paid £85,000 as well. And a lot of people are saying, well, it's not actually even at that, it's not even very effective, because up until January 23, there have been 26 overdoses among the current or former patients. And been running for about 5 years, right? It's quite a pretty high percent. I think it's about 25% have overdosed anyway. So the funding and the thinking behind both of these facilities is being criticised by campaigner Anne-Marie Ward of addiction recovery charity Favour UK. And Anne-Marie's a friend of the show. She says some £5.6 million has been allocated to the HAT service in Glasgow, including cash spent on taxi transport, which only just over £1 million is allocated for actual rehab beds across the city. So this highlights the underfunding of services designed to help individuals achieve long-term recovery. So despite the record-breaking drug-related deaths, the government keeps prioritising harm reduction over actual meaningful recovery pathways. And she's been saying this for a long time, and she's championing the Right to Recovery Bill, which would give people a legally protected right to recovery by expanding access to rehab beds and long-term recovery support. So, I mean, we've had this discussion before, but the Scottish Government seems to be fully focused on, they just want you to be able to take drugs safely, as opposed to actually trying to get you off drugs.
I don't know why they don't extend this to, like, Northern Public or something like that. Now, I'm a bit old for that, I have to say, these days. But I would like nothing better than, to the club.
Taxi paid.
And go to the day, take your drugs, have a dance, and then you're like, okay, no problem. You don't get arrested. What's wrong with that? Now, it's a ludicrous idea anyway, but that's the whole thing of this. It's like, what world is this? Does this make any sense? You're creating it. Where does it get illegal? How far do you have to step over the door, or to get arrested? It's like,
they're helping people take these dangerous drugs.
Yep.
They're helping them to do it, rather than saying, have a lot significantly more rehab beds where people can go in for treatment. Now, there are some rehab beds in Scotland. There's not a lot. The Scottish Government, I think, are saying like 1,000 people are getting helped a year. But that means on average that people are only going in for 6 weeks, and 6 weeks really isn't long enough.
No.
To actually get people into recovery. Anne-Marie says it takes about 3 months at least of treatment before people can actually recover. So this is where our tax money is going.
Yeah, so I'm pretty certain. I was reading a comment actually on this. We do Google reviews, and I thought, well, maybe there's some Google reviews this place. I thought for a laugh, like we put on the place is great, it's full of junkies, but actually somebody written that, but they actually meant it because they said our neighbourhood, which isn't a particularly great neighbourhood to begin with, but they were like, no, the neighbourhood just full of junkies. And the crime is going up and stuff like that. So I don't know if that's really helping the situation. I mean, it really isn't helping at all.
No.
So
no. I trust Anne-Marie Ward on this totally, and her point of view always is, surely you're better to help people to break the cycle of addiction than to keep them taking the drugs which are keeping them in this appalling way of living. And let's not forget, as part of the treatment, Scottish users have been given methadone up to now to try and get them stop them taking heroin. But then 51% of Scotland's drug deaths are from methadone use. That's like prescribing people drugs that will kill them. It's like euthanasia. This everything they're doing is so wrong. But the idea of somebody turning up, can you imagine this? I've said this before. Imagine the nurse saying, "Oh, you are Shuggy. Where did you get your drugs today? Oh, you broke into an old lady's house. Oh, you're a terrible man. No, come on, in you come then. Come on." Because they're taking the drugs with them. Not this secondary place, Mary, but they're taking their illegally acquired drugs with them. But through the proceeds of what exactly? I mean, what is that if not carrying on it's entrenching this idea that it's okay to go and steal your dogs as long as you come and use a nice clean needle. My God, is this what it's come to? Seriously, it's acceptance.
Well, I mean, if they graduate to really terrible behaviour, then they can go next door where they actually get the drugs for free.
Honestly, I mean,
and get picked up at the pub and taken along.
And this is how we're going to solve this.
It's insane.
Well, it sounds like a plan. So I'll meet you down there next week. No, it's a terrible situation for people who are actually addicted. I mean, joking aside, it's very, very terrible, and it's just really inconsistent behaviour.
Yes.
On the part of the Scottish government, who seems to choose every opportunity, the worst way possible to try and solve any problem.
It's like Andy McIver's making these decisions, seriously.
It really is the worst. Right. It's terrible.
Well, I know we're laughing at the insanity of it, exactly. But I mean it's a tragic, horrendous situation.
Indeed. By the way, Thomas Kerr, I made a little hint that maybe Anne-Marie Ward might be interested in getting involved in Holyrood possibly, and I've spoken to her about this. I absolutely think she should. She's one non-political person whom I think would immeasurably improve Holyrood. So let's hope she does do that genuinely, guys.
Yep.
Right, very good. All right. Okay, so where are we at? Very good, Mary. Well done. There. Things you can do right now to support the show. You can buy a t-shirt or a mug from the Majority Store, which we didn't mention earlier on. But of course, you can have a fantastic t-shirt like this one here, the Majority. Imagine wearing that every day. Anyway.
Just Mark doesn't actually wear it every day, but not that particular one. Some days it's in the wash.
Don't ruin the illusion. Right, okay, you can subscribe to the show on YouTube. And of course, we like subscribe. And of course, like likes. And you can tell all your friends of us. You can do all of the above, which makes us feel appreciated, underlined exclamation mark. Coming up, it's a moment you've all been waiting for. It's the highlight of the week. It is the first Zoomer of the week of 2025. You're saying yay, maybe?
Yay! Sorry, yay!
Right, the Zoomer of the week is Scooter Boy. What was the use of himself? Gift that keeps giving. Is there any better Zoomer? Didn't even Zoomer. Not doing anything for this way. He has to do stuff if you almost anything to get Elon Musk's attention these days. Today he jumped on Musk is a bit of a Nazi salute bandwagon, saying the tech billionaire's gesture is clearly a Nazi salute designed to mobilise right-wing forces. He has praised them. I have to say that I've followed Mr. Musk for some time. I've actually done daily news on for some time. Hobby project, and he's probably the worst Nazi ever, giving support for Israel and committed not to slaughter Jews. Unlike all those Palestinian pals who invaded Israel, killed over 200 people, and still hold almost 100 hostages, including 2 babies. So remember the rules. If you like Jews, raise your hand to your supporters and family. Then you're a Nazi. If you actually kill Jews, keep copies of Mein Kampf in your house and give Nazi salutes, then you're not a Nazi, of course, because you're Palestinian. You're not Nazis. Anyways, part of the same attention-seeking grift, comes once again challenged Musk to a debate. We did that a few months ago. Musk said, didn't say anything. Well, that must have annoyed him. But anyway, I would, for one, like to see this debate. It would be like a chess grandmaster playing checkers against a goldfish. Like an encyclopedia trying to have a conversation with a fortune cookie. More precisely, like a rocket scientist debating physics with a potato. Not a very pretty situation to Hamza. So anyway, just for his usual delusions of grandeur, here's the infamous Nazi salute there. And here is a racist, and here's not a racist. Racist, not racist. Tell the difference. Learn the difference, folks. Anyway, for being an arse in general, is that what it says here?
Arse of the week.
Scumbag. I'm not calling him scumbag. Elon Musk called him scumbag. And a total racist. But Elon Musk said that too. I will say he's anti-Semite. And I choose Hamza Yousaf for this week's Zoomer.
Now, some people are saying that every time you look down, you're losing the sound.
Yep.
So maybe you have to put your
I think
sheets
we'll,
up a
we'll
bit.
figure this out.
We'll
Project.
Yes, we'll figure this out.
We'd like to ask our viewers to learn to lip read, please.
Yeah, quite. We can do
Yes,
sign language, yeah.
stereo here. It's not
You're
like-
fading in and out. I'm always telling them that.
Yeah, bless him.
We tried. We did a test.
And it was fine. Yeah.
Sound test, yeah.
Everything was good. Everything was good. But we'll see. We're going to do
Gremlins.
some more testing when the show's over. Right. Anyway, that was my Zoomer. Mate, David.
David is next.
Yep, me. Yep. Here we go.
You are up next. I've got the same thing.
Okay, Pete. First one of the year. So my nomination for Zoomer this week to launch 2025 is SNP leader and First Minister John Safe Hands, full-on John Swinney. Now, I realise this is hardly an inspired choice of nominee, and he could easily be selected every week for his various acts of laughable idiocy. But this week, however, Swinney reminded us of his unique brand of incompetence. In an interview with Conor Matchett of The Sun, Swinney was questioned on several topics, one being the continuing effect on the SNP, the corrosive effect, that is, of Operation Branchform, and particularly the involvement of Nicola Sturgeon within. That was one topic, and Swinney ducked the question by hiding behind the live police investigation excuse, so he didn't get anywhere there. And then, though, he did become he found his voice when he was asked about the chances of a repeat of the independence referendum. So this is how the conversation went. Mark, do you have the clip there?
When will Scotland next vote on independence? Soon. When? Soon. When? Soon. I'll ask one more time. When? Soon. All right.
What?
Oh, God.
What's he saying?
Soon. That's his answer.
Oh.
So four times he was asked, and that buzzer was, Conor Matchett said to him at the start, if you don't give me an answer, I'm going to press the waffle buzzer. So that's why he did this shrug. So that was it. So when is Scotland going to be voting on independence again? For all you supporters of independence out there, the answer is soon. Happy with that? Great. Okay.
How soon is never?
Yeah, quite. So there you go. So, I mean, this is it. I mean, does that answer all your questions, guys? Soon. This is just beyond laughable. It's just rubbish. This is a person who's in charge of a party whose sole raison d'etre is to secure Scottish independence and to secure a mandate in order to vote on it. When's it going to happen? Soon. Repeated 4 times. People vote for this. Seriously, this clown. And this is the guy, Safe Hands, and this is him going full on. Right, okay, fine. So that's it. For demonstrating yet again just how unsuited he is to political life with his I'm the manager of a soon-to-close small-town bank persona. My nomination is full-on Johnson.
It's just a gaslighting. It just continues. And it's just, it's going to happen. It's going to happen, and we're going to talk about all this rubbish, and just until you get so sick of it that you might persist. It's like it's not going to happen. Leave it alone. Leave us all, and we've got other things to do. We'd like to do other things, really, and not listen to your garbage all the time. It's absolute nonsense. I think it's a worthy contender, definitely. Next up is going to be Mary.
Okay, so we've had Humza Yousaf and John Swinney, so no all-star Zoomer lineup is complete without the irrelevant idiots known as the Scottish Greens. So the Scottish Greens are my Zoomers this week for their complete lack of self-awareness again, issuing warnings ahead of Donald Trump's presidential inauguration yesterday. Maggie Chapman said Trump is a real and present danger to people and planet. The politics that he represents are the exact opposite of everything that Scotland should stand for. Okay, so what are these politics that Trump represents that are the exact opposite of everything Scotland should stand for? Could it be that he wants to make his country great again? Could it be that he wants to stop impoverishing people with green nonsense and energy insecurity when there are abundant oil and gas reserves at home? Could it be that he's ending destructive wokery that is destroying society, harming children in the military and women's rights? Or could it be that he is securing the borders, deporting illegals and fighting drug crime and drug gangs? No, Maggie wants none of that. And she is also joined by her Scottish Greens co-leader, Lorna Slater. She's expressing alarm. She was expressing alarm ahead of Trump's swearing in. She said, developing Scottish businesses, I mean, Lorna Slater talking about Scottish businesses, is of course something we want to do. And it's such a shame that Brexit has damaged that. What has Donald Trump got to do with Brexit? But anyway, kowtowing to Donald Trump and allowing him to dictate how the rest of the world goes is not a future that's going to be one where people can thrive. If it's not salmon and whiskey, what else will it be? Okay. Now, Lorna Slater is, of course, best known for her disastrous bottle deposit return scheme that recently inflicted untold costs and damage on the Scottish drinks industry, and it's going to cost the Scottish taxpayers millions. Now, she does not have the slightest inkling what is good for Scottish business. She could never in a million years put together any business deal that's good for Scotland. She would have absolutely no idea where to begin, which is why she and Maggie Chapman and the rest of the commie, hapless Greens should shut their mouths, sit back and watch as Donald Trump reverses so much of the damage done by their types and possibly do it in the next 4 years.
Very good.
Well, yeah, it's true. I mean, this is an important point. I think it's a bit much. These people coming in from South Africa and
Rhodesia,
Canada, and telling you what to do now. Be serious. It's just not that. It's not the right thing. Now, who is it to decide?
We haven't actually appointed anyone, so I'd like to appoint David.
Oh, I'm a decider. Right, okay. Well,
he's on holiday, so he should be rested. And
yes, yeah, exactly. Okay, who's been most Zoomerish this week then? I always try and get it for the sheer essence of Zoomerism, which I really like to do. So who's best represented that? No, I'm going to give it to Hamza.
I'm not being biased.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to give it to Hamza for having the gall to think he can debate with Elon Musk, as if Elon Musk would ever even deign to engage with Hamza Yusuf on any level. So yeah, Hamza wins it for
that's
that.
truly Zoomerish, I have to say.
Yes.
Absolutely. Right, hold on. I have to type in.
Doing that. Okay. Right.
So,
happy to have you all with us on the show every week on Scotland's #1 politics chat.
Listen, public opinion here is saying Mary wins. You've got the popular vote, Mary.
Yes,
I might have the popular vote, but I didn't get the electoral college vote or whatever.
But another win for Hamza. I mean,
we ended the last year with Hamza, and we're starting this year. So
every week now. Okay, back same time next week, same time, same place. Leave with thought of the week. Politics in many ways is about hope. We've seen what we can do in the US, but will we ever get anything like that here? Well, we can always live in hope that something that will happen. We thank you all for your support and for joining us tonight. We will thank you, David, as well, for joining us from the States.
From his holiday.
Can I just say that me being here way out west in America just highlights the global reach of Scotland's anti-nationalist majority.
Exactly.
That is very good. Right, okay, thank you all for being with us, and we will see you next time. I wonder though, I'm going to do the closing credits. I'm going to keep it on for a minute. I'm going to just check the sound, okay?
Thank you everyone for your patience with our sound problems. I really appreciate it. We'll get it sorted by next week.
And thanks to everyone for the opinions. You may not agree with me, but it's great that you have this banter back and forth. Fantastic. Thanks, guys. Keep it coming, please.
Okay.
Good night, everyone.
Right, if anyone is still with us, please let me know if this improves this sound. Okay, I'm going to do a couple of changes and we'll see where we're at.
Won't this go out on our YouTube though, Mark?
No, I'll cut it off the end. Okay, and does that make any difference? And if anyone is there, they can tell us.
I don't listen to you through the headphones.
No, right.
Go.
Okay, right. I think we'll do a test.
No.
Do a test later.
Alan Gray says yes.
That's better.
Thanks.
Is that better?
Alan Jack says, talk and we will tell you.
I see that. Yeah, that's
No.
Any better. All right. Okay, right. One more change.
Richard Graham says better.
Oh, really? One more change. I'll try.
Mary is nice and clear.
I'll try this one. 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? Can you hear us now?
You're rather muffled.
How about this?
But I don't know because there's a delay in the comments, Mark, so.
1, 2, 3. But I still can't hear you, Mary, in the monitor.
Dropping sound.
Right, okay, fine. All right, we'll see you later. Thank you very much.
Thank
for giving me
you.
help. We'll figure this out over